Welcome to Season 3 of the M-W Tactical Podcast. Sit back and enjoy the conversations of the mad scientist and myself as we discuss the sport of shooting, goals, training, and everyday life. You are listening to the M-W Tactical Podcast. All right, good people. We're back at it again. Another podcast from the trio, as you know, as the M-W Tactical Podcast. This week's show is sponsored by Outdoor Dynamics. Their slogan is, "We pull the handle so you don't have to." Go check out what all they have to offer as far as your reloading competition needs. I think they got the best prices around. They have a quality products, and let John know you heard about Outdoor Dynamics on the M-W Tactical Podcast. So just go check out outdoordynamics.com and get those competition rounds that you need for these upcoming matches in the further following months. We also have the South Carolina State match, the South Carolina section that is taking place 30 April through 2 May. Registration is open. And of course, the mad scientist was chasing me around on the range, talking about get people to sign up. So I don't want to get put in a headlock. So please go sign up for the South Carolina section taking place 30 April through 2 May in Belton, South Carolina. And go shake the mad scientist's hand so he can leave me alone. All right.
I'll be there all week, actually.
Oh, yeah. So here we go. Bringing in the first co-host. This guy actually turns the tools, has the knowledge, does a multitude of facets, but I'm surprised Marvel and DC hasn't made a character after him as of yet. I think his character name would be called That Gun Guy, but we call him the Mad Scientist. Dave. What's going on, Dave?
Yeah, we need that gun guy. We need that.
Hey, that's it right there.
Well, they don't have a gun guy, do they?
Well, you got Killshot from, remember the movie Suicide Squad?
DC, yeah. He's a guy. Oh, he's a pretty badass gun guy.
Yeah. He's on point, especially with no look shots.
Yeah. He's got a little pure eyepiece thing. I don't have one.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, well, you got the red dot, so that can count in that regard, you know. So, but how has your week been since the last episode?
Been busy, man. We've been really busy at work,
Right.
Which is good, which is very good. We've got potentially some new customers that are interested in some fabrication stuff. So we've been working on some new projects and been staying busy. I've been doing some stuff around the house and trying to keep up with my dry fire in the morning.
Hey, that's it right there. I know me and Lucky had a conversation. I told him, I was like, Dave, wake up at 3:00 and start dry fire, right? I don't think he believed me when I said it. And I was like, yeah, he wakes up pretty early, especially when he go to bed at like 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I know. I get up at 3:30.
Hey, I was
not 3. Well, I got up at 2:30 this morning, not on purpose. I don't know. I woke up and my brain started turning and I couldn't get back to sleep. So
you better than me because I had to catch up on some sleep. All right. So now bringing in the second co-host for the week. She also stated you cannot put the camera on her or she will not talk. So she is the one that keeps the operations going. She's the one that runs the calendar. She's the one that is running all the marketing campaigns. She's the one that is doing the bread and butter affairs for everything associated with M-W Tactical. Without further ado, Coach B. What's going on, B?
Hi, Michael. Hi, Dave.
How has your
Howdy.
week been since the last time you've been on the show?
It was good. Not quite as busy as the week prior with all the birthdays. Um, so it's been good.
Right. So, without, the busyness, I always said busy is good because I think busy keeps your mind going, but at the same time, it challenges you. And before you know it, it's over with. And then without the busy challenge going on, you're probably looking for the next challenge because that challenge probably was too easy for you.
Right. Well, 3 birthdays in 1 week is not very easy,
That's a
especially
lot.
whenever they're teenagers.
Yeah, that's it right
So,
there. So, but I think we're gonna have an interesting conversation for this show. So once again, thank you for coming on, and hopefully within the next 6 episodes, we probably can convince Coach B to get on camera, not just the microphone, but you know how it go. All right, so bringing on the third co-host for the M-W Tactical Podcast. This right here is the one we call the little assistant. She's also the one that actually tells me, do this, do that, this, post that. And she gets mad or upset when the decision she make is not followed. And then too, she always puts me on punishment. So I'm gonna go ahead and welcome the little assistant. How's it going for you, little girl?
Good.
Good. That's all you're gonna say. Is good.
Good.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So, how was your day today?
Awesome.
You had an awesome day.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, we're gonna do some arts and crafts here in a little bit. Whereas, we ended up getting her a baby Yoda and a little dog, so we're gonna paint those later on, so she can do some arts and crafts and show that art skill that she got.
Very cool.
So you said you wanted to do the podcast again, so here we are again.
Yay!
Yeah,
Here we
that's it
are.
right there. Anything you want to talk about specific?
No.
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 No. Okay. Well, we don't have to talk about anything specific. I do want to say, you know, um, everybody. I've been reading and seeing some stuff that's concerning to me, and as far as what's going on with the current administration, where firearms are in play, and oh, it's a scary state, man. This is about to get scary and hairy here in a couple next couple months.
Harry.
Yeah,
Harry.
hairy. Hmm. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know what y'all take on that. It's going to be. Whereas when I look at it, I see a lot of stuff happening, but it's like they're working backwards for their agenda. So they stated their goal, and the goal is set, and they're working backwards to the agenda to now. But I believe that whole tactic of, oh, people don't understand this, or they're not smart enough to do this, that's outdated. But we do need to get people active to become more proactive in the decisions that's about to be handed down, from the upper leadership of government. But in the same time, you look at it like what can we actually do? What are we going to do? How are the people going to come up? I don't believe in the whole marching situation. So I mean, that worked back in the 50s and 60s, but I don't think it works
Yeah.
today.
No, it's
You know?
just
But I do believe, like I said, the people need to actively stay on their elected representatives, get in their ear, and hopefully they're doing the right thing on their end. What's your take on it?
I feel the same way. I saw a discussion on Facebook today, but it wasn't about firearms. And it was someone just discussing politics and things that are happening outside of firearms. But it's got to be more than that. It's got to be people contacting their representatives to hopefully get change and to um, make these laws or let them know that they don't want these laws passed and how they feel and what they want. it's not the same as what they're trying to pass.
Oh yeah. So we have somebody from overseas. They will be coming on to the one of the next upcoming shows, and we're going to talk about what they see overseas and how they view what's taking place in America and comparing the laws and their way of life with firearms and everything. Me and this person, we actually had a conversation. It was just through chat over social media, but it really wasn't an in-depth conversation. It was, yeah, I'm willing to do it. Okay, thanks. And they wrote something else, but I was driving, so I didn't even really look at the message. But we're going to plan that out here for the next couple of weeks so we can actually do that comparison. In conversation with somebody else earlier in the week, whereas we were talking about firearms and what's taking place, and I stated to this person, history repeats itself if the people are not educated and paying attention what's going on. And the person did not believe me until they looked it up. And I was like, yeah, like Nazi Germany, they came to America to study how America was actually doing certain things, during the Jim Crow era, you know. And the only difference between the two governments was America's system was put in place to keep certain people down, but at the same time they was keeping people down. They understood the platform of having those same people work for the monetary gain, but the Nazi army or the Nazi Germany, they wanted to get rid of one race of people because it was all about the pure blood and everything like that, even though it was like that here also, but they did it as a crime, but they wasn't going to mess up the workforce in the same sense. So it was a pretty in-depth conversation we had, and they was like, I had no idea. And I was like, yeah, if you don't understand history, this is what happens. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So you got to open your eyes and you got to look at certain things in a certain way.
Man, it was such a devastating thing that happened, and I've mentioned that to people before too, and there's, oh no, there's no way that could happen. There's no way that could happen again. But it really was not that long ago that it happened. My grandfather was, on the grounds trying to you know help uh, protect our freedom when this was going on. So it was in, 2 generations ago, which was, wasn't that long ago.
Right. Yeah.
But for some reason, people forget so quickly.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've always said we as Americans, we have short memories. And if it's not affecting us now, because technically, when you look at a lot of people out here, and I've always said this to certain people, don't buy the Jordans, don't buy this, don't buy that, like expensive stuff. Buy what you need. Right. My philosophy of things is, okay, you got a vehicle. Okay. You're not living in that vehicle. Right. So I've been doing like keeping track of the times I've driven my vehicle over the past 6 months. The longest I've driven my vehicle was 112 hours. The shortest I've driven my vehicle was 22 hours. And that was over the course of 6 months. you know, so I'm looking at it, and maybe it's just the way I think and how I look at things. Why would I pay $112,000 for a vehicle just because of the name or whatever it is, so other people can grope about it, look at it, when I'm only in the vehicle for not even 1/4 of a month, you know? So that's
I
just my talk. That's my thought.
I drive a minivan because I think they're sexy, and I think
Mm.
people enjoy watching me drive a minivan around.
So let's do this then. Let's hop in the minivan and let's do a music video. We can recreate jacking for beats like Ice Cube. Yeah. So Coach B says she used to have a minivan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had to.
Yeah.
4 kids. Yeah.
So that's what it is. I never had a minivan. So
Oh man,
Can't have
You're
that
missing
experience.
out. You're missing
Missing out of getting to laugh at. Well, I can't say I actually drove a couple when I was in the military, because when they would give us the vehicles to go from point A to point B for business reasons, you really didn't have a say so of what they gave you. And there was a few times where we did get the minivan. So, but
Wow, they work, man. You can get a lot of people, a lot of gear in there. They're, they're
I would
functional.
say that was the best driving vehicle I've ever had. That was my minivan.
I call mine the urban assault vehicle, the UAV.
yeah, I remember I told you that when I first. He was like, "Yeah, look for the red urban assault vehicle." I was like, "What? That's what we calling this now?" That's what it is. So let's go ahead and jump into a quick commercial break and come on back and hit up these main talking points for the show. And we're actually going to have an interview from the founder of Walk the Talk America, Michael Sodini, who is actually a friend of mine. And yeah, he has something interesting going on, and it's something positive. But I think the powers to be are overlooking it, whereas we were talking about the positive change that can come within the gun laws and everything. So let's go and take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll jump into this conversation and then hear what Michael Sodini has to say about Walk the Talk America. So please stay in your seats, turn the volume up, and here are a few words from our sponsors.
Mental health and guns. At Walk the Talk America, we are working with both the mental health community and the gun industry. Created by a gun industry veteran, Walk the Talk America seeks to raise awareness and create change through suicide prevention and firearm safety without legislation. We strive to eliminate the prejudice that firearms and mental health face. For more information and to support Walk the Talk America, please visit walkthetalkamerica.org.
JM4 Tactical has developed a state-of-the-art polymer holster that will quickly become your go-to holster. With high-quality Herman oak leather, securely sewn to the interior of the molded outer bolt-on shell, your draw becomes silent and no more scratches up and down your firearm. When seconds count, you can rest assured that you will have the upper hand when you need it most. Whether you carry open or concealed, the Relic holster is available in 4 different models, fitting over hundreds of different style guns. The new reliable, easy, light, individual carry holster by JM4 Tactical. Order your Relic today at jm4tactical.com.
What's up, good people? This is Michael Woodland from M-W Tactical,
This is Coach B from M-W Tactical.
and we are asking for your help with 2 GoFundMe campaigns that we have started. The first one is we are making a professional movie, and it's going to be about our day-to-day life within the sport of shooting. Details about this campaign can be found by visiting gofundme.com/we are making a professional movie. The second campaign, we are asking for you to donate to give financial assistance for those who cannot financially get the training they deserve. Remember, there are a lot of first-time gun owners out there, and I am asking for everyone in the gun industry to come together and make our community stronger. For more details, visit gofundme.com/free firearms training.
Remember how important training is to keep everyone informed and safe.
All right, good people. Welcome back to segment 2 of the M-W Tactical Podcast. And before we go any further, I owe everyone an apology because last week we were supposed to have an interview with JM4 Tactical. But if you're following the news or even live in Texas, you understand what's taking place in Texas right now with the bad weather. And when the interview was supposed to take place, that was when they lost power. So I apologize for not having an interview segment last week, but we're going to actually get JM4 Tactical on in the upcoming weeks as well. So, but for everybody who's living out in Texas, everyone is in our prayers. And if you need help, reach out. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be organizations that go ahead and come forth to render that assistance for those who are in need. Now, pushing forward with the conversation, as we said at the beginning of the show, we have the South Carolina State match that is coming forth 30 April through 2 May. And are you actually doing anything special to train up for the match, or are you expecting something from a shooter standpoint, but not a match director standpoint?
Oh man, I'm so involved in the match. It's hard for me to even think about from a shooter's standpoint.
Yeah.
I try to. I mean, I'm thinking about it, but there's so much stuff going on with directing the match and making sure the thing,
Mhm.
goes smoothly. It I don't know. I really maybe when we get a little bit closer, I can kind of, once we get
Focus
things
more into it.
kind of ironed out, I can focus a little more on training for it.
Yeah. For me, right now, even though I'm thinking about the match, I'm not thinking about it like I was for Area 6 or Nationals last year.
No, it's hard to
Um,
do.
yeah, because it's so much behind the scenes stuff that we're both doing for the South Carolina section match, and constantly on the phones with people, the emails, and then doing various things for the different companies. It is interesting. It is busyness, but it's fun in the same sense of speaking. But I am looking at it as I can see where it will take away from the shooting aspect
No,
of
yeah,
things.
yeah, it definitely will.
Yeah, because one thing that is actually taken away from is my workout platform.
Yeah.
And I might have to take a page from your book like I used to do in the military, which is wake up earlier to get that hour and a half workout in and then let my day start.
Well, it's a. I didn't want to do that, but it was the only way I could fit in, the time, the training time that consistently. It's the only way I could keep it consistent. I just couldn't do it in the afternoon.
Right. Well, how are you looking at it, Coach B, as far as your involvement with the behind the scenes and the shooter aspect of it?
Well, as far as the shooters aspect, I haven't um, been doing the dry fire like I should, which I've stated earlier that I have a personal goal that I'm trying to meet. So um, that has to come first before shooting. Hopefully that's going to be done in March, and then I can get into dry firing regularly.
Right.
And if I have to get up an hour early to make that happen, then yeah, maybe we'll make that happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice.
Well, I did find a reconnection with Dryfire as well, and doing the whole trying to get the reload in as fast as I can, and I think I'm nipping at the 0.85 mark. I did take it down to point 0.90, I think it was,
Yes.
and now when I do it, I won't touch the clock. So I wait until Coach B comes around, or I'll hit her up and be like, "Hey, I'm about to do dry fire. I need your help." And I give her the clock, but sometimes she'll be messing with me, so it'll be like beep. When I reset, as soon as I put my hand, beep, like, oh, you gotta let me get ready. I'm throwing magazines on the wall and knocking over stuff. So, of course, she's sitting over there laughing and everything. I was like, yeah, okay, I don't see you over here doing it with me, you know. But I did find a re-emerging of dry fire also. So, and I'm about to put the target stands back up in the backyard and run around the backyard like we did last year. But since I did start working out, I bulked up a lot also. So, and the other day I was changing the oil in the truck, and I'm like, I don't recall ever having a hard time getting down and getting back up. So what's going on?
You need to make sure you're stretching.
Yeah, I'm stretching, but at the same time, I realized how much I bulked up also. So my normal weight was between 200 and 215, maybe 220 on a bad day. The other day, we stepped on the scale and I was at 236. But I did have jeans on. Had my keys in my wallet. You know, all that stuff is heavy. So I'm gonna let you know all that stuff is heavy. But I was at 236. So but I think here next week I'm gonna turn up the notch on working out because I have to do something. 'Cause I'm starting to feel a little sluggish also.
I had plans. I still have plans, but man, the weather's been so bad for I don't know how long now, at least 2 weeks. Hi there. I see you. I haven't I cleared out all the property behind or extra property behind the fence. I've got another half acre I have set up, and I have target stands and stuff out there with plans to, do a lot of movement and exercise out there. But man, it's been raining almost every single day for the last 2 weeks. It's
Yeah.
cold.
It's
I
hard.
haven't been able to get out there.
Yeah. Well, last week when it was raining, I went out back and I did pull-ups in the rain.
I
You know what I'm saying?
might eventually just get to that point where I gotta go out in the rain. I don't care.
Yeah, actually I was waiting on Coach B to come over, and I was thinking when she came over, she was gonna actually see me doing it and try to catch it on camera or something. But when she came over, she was like, "Oh, you tired? You did pull-ups?" Like, yeah, I did. So it is what it is. But South Carolina State match, it's coming up as we said, and we're going to prepare for it the best that we can. But from a staff standpoint, I do believe that we're going to put together 10 stages that will be action packed, fun for everyone, and not it's not going to break the bank when it comes to the round count for 10 stages.
No, we kept the round count. I don't know, a medium round count. I can't remember now, but I don't think we have a 32 round stage. Maybe one.
No, I think the highest one was 28.
28. Okay, I can't remember, but yeah, they're not all 32 round stages. I do love pulling the trigger. I wish we could have all 32 round stages, but it's just we're trying to make it possible, to come shoot. We're not demanding a lot of high round count, and all the stages have now been approved by USPSA. The match is official. It's all looking good. We went had some critiques and stuff we had to address, and everything's looking good now. There's nothing crazy, no crazy props or weird stuff going on, but it'll be challenging, and from a shooter's perspective, you need to be on your game. We're not doing anything carnival wise, but you got to be able to shoot.
Also, Blazon, who is one of the match sponsors, they are giving their spot up, and we got to come up with a way to give that spot up to somebody who can be the lucky winner of that spot. And
So their shooter spot.
Yeah, for the Blazon shooter spot for the match.
Okay.
So we just got to figure out what we got to do. So if anything, head on over to Instagram and follow at M_W Tactical and at CSRA Shooters, and stay tuned to what we're going to put out as far as what we can possibly do to make this an interesting challenge for people to partake in to possibly win a free spot at the South Carolina sectional.
Free slot at the sectional. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, Belton Gun Club, Belton, South Carolina.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I think between the three of us, we can come up with something, outside of me joking and y'all two being serious all the time. Yeah, so there was an article that I came across earlier, and this was a touching article to me, and I touched a little bit on it in the first portion of the show, whereas New Jersey it was a judge in New Jersey who ordered Smith & Wesson to hand over documents on how they market their firearms. Now, the first time they went to court, Smith & Wesson won. But then I think it was the district attorney came back and said they got to hand that stuff over now. When I look at
Marketing plans.
yeah, well, when I look at that, this is what I look at it as, that somebody had got with somebody, and then when it got to the court, the attack is going to happen in reverse measures. You know what I'm saying? So if you can look at how these firearm companies are marketing, now you know who to target to make that not happen, to deter sales, which will eventually erode that company in a sense of speaking from a backwards standpoint.
Hmm.
You know, that's one way to look at it. The other way, like I said, is just a backwards attack because they already stated what the agenda will be. But now, how are you going to get to that agenda if you try to go forward and play it properly? Right. So, if the system is what the system is, if the people come together and the majority of them say, we don't want this, of course, it's not going to happen. But in the reality world, if they're working at the agenda backwards, more than likely they're going to reach that goal. But this is when the people need to become active so they don't reach that goal. But I also believe the Second Amendment is the gateway to changing the other amendments. So if you happen to change the Second Amendment behind like this nonsense and doing all that, now you're starting to infringe on people's rights now, in a sense of speaking.
Yeah, yeah. This is totally our civil right.
Yeah.
And it is scary. And I'm sure people have heard that, you know, the Second Amendment is in place to protect the rest of the amendments. We've just about lost the First Amendment. Our freedom of speech just about gone now.
Yeah.
You know, if we lose the Second Amendment, you can just about bet that the rest of them are gone.
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. The thing that catches me is when you read, I can't remember the number, the HR bill for the new,
The 157, is that what it is now?
for whatever reason, I was thinking 415, but whatever the number is, when you go back and you read the outline of everything that's changing, it only
120,
affects
127.
127. It only affects us. And when I say us, um, like we're not millionaires. You know, some of us are barely making it. You know, we are living comfortable, but how many people are barely on that comfortable line? You know, but now if they happen to impose this tax that they're saying that's going to be like $800 a year, and then you got to get the 24-hour training, you know what I'm saying? That's bleeding you dry right there.
It's just money. It's
Yeah, that's what it all comes down to, is money and control. But
that's all it is. They're not even approaching this as like
realistic.
anything to like help
Yes.
prevent gun violence or whatever they used to come up with, you know.
Yeah.
This is just taxing and
Yeah.
money.
So now
That's it.
here's the part that gets me. Okay. Now, what if you have the handicapped person who is an amputee or confined to a wheelchair? All right.
Mhm.
Now, if that law was to come in and take away the firearms, now where does that leave that person? What about the single mother who has 2 to 3 children, right? Living in whatever neighborhood in a home by themselves, and people know this, you know? Or what about the guy who's getting off the bus late at work, I mean late at night after a hard day's work, and now he gets off the bus, he still has to walk 5 miles to get home.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Where I'm going with it?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sickening.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So, but it's, I wish these politicians would come together and say, "Hey, look, let's bring in these people from the firearms community and hear what they have to say." And of course, this is what we're presenting, right? Which they see as the problem. This is our solution. what we could do, you know. And I think one of the positive aspects for this change is Michael Sodini with Walk the Talk America, you know, and I think he needs to be on any committee whereas they're talking about any type of change in a positive direction, right?
That's most of the stuff that's presented comes from the House of Representatives. For some reason that I don't know, but most of them know absolutely nothing about firearms, and that's
Right.
that's what bothers me the most. It's the people that know nothing about what they're wanting to try to control and regulate do not need to be the ones creating these laws and proposing these bills, regardless of whatever it is, firearms or anything else. I mean, you need some kind of subject matter experts involved with these bills and what you're trying to regulate, but they're not doing that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the downside to it is how many people are going to try to make it a known point. Whereas, okay, look, I'm contacting this representative. This right here is what we're going to do. Blah 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 blah. Right. I've reached out like 6 times already and stated, hey, this is what I'm willing to do, so we can actually talk and show you what's actually going on. Because now it at first the attack was on the bad guy, you know, with the firearm, the gang members with the firearm, people who are not supposed to have firearms. Now the attack is on the honest citizen trying to do the right thing,
Yeah,
you know,
the
as a whole.
people trying to legally purchase and own firearms. What? Yeah, that's.
Yeah, yeah. So
Uh,
it's one of those like I said, one of those measures, whereas if you're not really looking at it, it's going to slip away. It's going to slip away. So
it has in just about every other country in the world.
yes, and that's every time you turn around, like, why are we not doing what they do in Australia, or why are we not doing what they do in Greenland? Look at what's taking place in there. They have all the crimes that's happening there. They're not even reporting half of it, you know, especially not the mainstream big attacks like all the killings and everything. You know,
I don't know where our listeners from that we're having on the show, but I've talked to a couple of people that are from Brazil who have moved here from Brazil, and there is so much crazy crime in Brazil because of
oh
the
man,
the gun restrictions. The criminals there know that the majority of citizens there are not armed. They're not allowed to be armed legally, not allowed to own firearms. So they can pretty much just do whatever they want to do.
yeah. So we were supposed to go to Brazil, you know, with the gym that I'm with, and we was gonna go down there and just stay down there for a little bit, train up a little bit, and do a couple competitions down there.
For the jiu-jitsu, because that's real big. A lot of that comes
Yeah.
from Brazil. Yeah.
They was pretty much telling us, like, if we was to go there, the area we were supposed to be at, we couldn't just walk around by ourselves. We had to have somebody like escort us. And we was like, well, we got to come up with a better plan. And that was one of the talking points was you will get jacked. And it isn't like it is here, whereas they'll pull the firearm out on you and just rob you and then leave. Like, they more than likely, if they pull the firearm out on you, they're going to shoot you to slow you down, and then they rob you, and then they leave. You know,
Well, they know there's nothing that
yeah, they
anyone
know
can do to stop it.
yeah, exactly. So that's what it comes down to. Well, what you got to say, Coach B?
I feel like part of it is the politicians and stuff until something happens to them or one of their loved ones, they're not going to see what we see.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that whole me mentality. Well, it doesn't affect me. And it's not until it does affect them that they'll see that everyone has a right to carry a firearm or to bear arms, that is a right that we should have.
Well, you know, well, one thing about those politicians also is the fact when they're all millionaires, of course,
Right.
because you're a lawmaker, you go in average citizen, and you come out a millionaire. the other side of it
Still not
is,
quite sure how that happens.
yeah,
They don't
exactly,
get paid that much.
supposedly, but
They
when you,
don't. They
yeah,
don't.
well,
They're not.
the
But
lobbyists, that's what it is. The lobbyists, they pay off them to swing certain things their way, so that's how they make certain monies. Um, but even when you turn around and you look at it, I believe politicians need term limits. It
Right.
takes the corruption out. It actually have everything flowing better because, and this is the same conversation I had a couple days ago with the same person I said previous. I don't understand how we're still having the same conversation from what took place in the 50s and 60s, and the narrative is still the same, the conversations are still the same, and nothing's changed in between.
well, you got some. Really, you got some of the same people in office from the 50s and
Exactly.
60s.
Right.
That's why I'm saying we need term limits. We need term limits. But what else you had to say there, Coach B?
But it seems like they're targeting firearms as a mental health issue also.
Oh, yeah. I heard that the other day as well. So, and even I heard the president say that. And then I heard other people saying that, like, I forgot what the press secretary name is, the female, but she's pretty much said the same thing also, is they're trying to lump it all under the mental issue. And I'm like, oh, you're trying to say everybody who got a firearm has a mental issue?
So I don't know. I mean, I somewhat understand. You have to be careful. There are a lot of mental illnesses that you're seeing a lot of crime from or whatever. But it's man, that's really touchy subject too. I don't know. I
it,
don't know
it
that you
is.
can't just lump firearm owners into some
Yeah.
sort of mental illness because you feel like you need to protect yourself.
No. If I already know how the argument's going to go. Well, we had this many school shootings and this many people died behind firearms, and then they're going to use certain scenarios, and it's always going to be more negative than positive. But in that same breath, if you was to prosecute people properly, you wouldn't have the problem you have now.
Exactly.
So like if somebody shot up a school, prosecute that joker to the full extent of the law, and watch when your next one's going to happen. But when so and so is getting a smack on the wrist, that leaves the door open for the copycat to come in.
Hmm.
Now he gets a smack on the wrist, and it just keeps going. No, prosecute those
Yeah.
guys to the full extent of the law, right? And that's going to deter that stuff from happening, right? Ask me how I know, because when I was a kid, whenever my brother did something wrong and I saw the butt spanking he got, no, I ain't doing that. I ain't going over there. I ain't touching that. Right? It deterred me from doing that as being bad as a
Yeah.
kid.
Well, the some of the publicity that the media gives these guys even builds on others. They think, well, they might could outdo this guy that did the school shooting to get more publicity. It's
Yeah.
the
Like,
the
I mean,
media pushes some of that stuff too.
yeah, but that we already know negativity sells. Controversy is always going to sell,
Yeah.
because once again, I've always said people are nosy, when it comes to our way of life. And common point is when you're driving down the road, let an accident happen or a cop got somebody pulled over. Let it be on the interstate. You're almost going to come to a complete stop
Oh
until
my
you
gosh,
pass that
that
incident.
drives me crazy.
Yeah. People rubbernecking, and at the same time, they're just being nosy. Why? But all in all, when you turn around and you look at it, it's not a mental issue. It's not the blame on the gun. It's the blame on the people. And it's on both sides. But I believe what needs to take place is both sides need to come together, meaning the gun community and the politicians, come to a resolution and then make the law off of the resolution, then see what happens.
I think that would be great, but how would that ever happen? How could it happen?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked. All right. So first of all, you know how you always have all these Senate hearings and everything. So they have these panels, and that's how the interactions takes place. So they'll bring in so many subject matter experts, and you'll sit there in like a little hearing, and they'll ask questions, pros and cons. But at the same time, they have subject matter experts. Like, for instance, if they say, well, we want the staff of M-W Tactical to come to DC to sit in on the Senate hearing, right? So now it'd be me, you, and Coach B, and we give our perspective or whatever. But now sitting across the side of us, it might be mom, like mom's demand. What is it?
The moms demand action.
Yeah,
or
those
something.
people. Yeah, so they might be on the other side, countering everything we're trying to say. You know what I'm saying? So it's your argument, and whoever's listening, that panel, which would be like about 9-12 people, whoever is assigned to it, they're actually asking the questions and they're coming up with their narrative, and then they're listening. And then, of course, by the time you hit the lobby, somebody will tag you and pull you to the side and be like, hey, we want to talk to you more about this, if they feel like you are in their respective lane, But then again, they could pull you aside and say, we want to talk to you more about this in a positive light. And then when they're talking to you, they're taking everything you're saying and say, okay, we need to counter this, 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 and this. So it can work for and against you as well.
Yeah.
So, but that's the first part of it. The actual very first part of it is the citizens need to contact those elected representatives. I don't know how many times we got to say it, but I'm going to keep saying it until it actually happens. Everybody needs to call their elected representatives and give them a piece of your mind as to what's going on up there in Capitol Hill. So I know I'd be giving Coach B an earful, because I'd be calling and I'd be like, let me tell you what I just read. Let me tell you what I just saw. This ain't right. And she just sits back and be like, yeah, I hear you. I agree. Knowing she over there playing solitary on the phone or something, ain't paying me no mind. Yeah. So another aspect of positive change, as far as that's going, I think, as I stated earlier, Michael Sodini with Walk the Talk America, he has a lot of positive insight as to what we could do for those who are willing to come forth and, make that positive change. So what if somebody is with their significant other, they're having an argument, they're ex-military, and they have a state of depression going on. Right. He got like programs in place, what they can do to help everybody. So it's a win-win for the community on both sides of the fence. So I want to go ahead and jump into this conversation with Mike and introduce him to people who don't know much about Walk the Talk America, and open their eyes and get everybody involved with his mission. So I think this will be interesting. So you got anything else yeah. So you have anything else you want to share or discuss before we take off, Coach B?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
All right. What about you, little assistant?
No.
You don't have anything? Okay.
No.
All right, cool.
I want to know what you had for dinner. What did you have for dinner?
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A. Awesome.
Yeah. Only reason we had Chick-fil-A is because I forgot to lay out some food to cook.
That's right. Chick-fil-A will take care of it.
Yeah. So I was born like, what do you want to eat? So she said Wendy's or Chick-fil-A. So we chose Chick-fil-A.
It's hard to beat.
Yeah, that's what I say. All right. So like we said,
Delicious.
everybody, please go follow at CSRA Shooters on Instagram and Facebook, CSRA Shooters. And also go follow at M_W Tactical on Instagram, and then just M-W Tactical on Facebook. And stay tuned to what we're going to put out far as what would take place for someone to possibly get the free shooter slot from Blazon for the 2021 South Carolina Sectional, taking place at Belton Gun Club, 30 April through 2 May. All right. So if you will, turn up the volume, sit back in your seats, put your vehicles on cruise control, and listen to these words from our sponsors.
Yo, 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 this is Keita Bussey, and you are listening to the M-W Tactical Podcast.
What's up, good people? Thank you for taking the time and listening to the M-W Tactical Podcast. Please go visit the M-W Tactical store at www.m-wtactical.com/store and help support our efforts by purchasing a shirt or two. If you haven't done so, go follow us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for M-W Tactical.
The gun cleaners.
Our solvent is, I think, second to none. Our lube is second to none. Our lube's heavier than water, which is just a huge thing. People don't really put a lot of thought into that, just how huge that is to have on your gun, especially with concealed carry.
The gun cleaners.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
You know, you're going to sweat a lot of the other lubes off. With ours, it'll stay there.
The gun cleaners.
And maintaining the quality of the process, the quality of the end result is another, and you guys are able to do both with the process that you have there.
Order your supply of the lube and the solvent at www.theguncleaners.com.
Are you in the market to purchase your first or next firearm, but find the atmosphere of a gun store intimidating, crowded, or uninviting? There's a way for you to purchase the gun you want while avoiding the crowds, the gruff salesmen, and the marked up prices that come with a brick and mortar gun store. The process is called a transfer, where the purchase is made in an online store and sent to a federally licensed middleman called an FFL, who processes the paperwork and background check for a firearm purchase. CAE Transfers is the FFL with the lowest transfer cost in the Midlands at only $20 or $15 with the presentation of a South Carolina concealed weapons permit and $10 for repeat customers. If you live in Columbia, South Carolina or its surrounding areas, choose CAE Transfers as your FFL during checkout and let me help you complete your online gun purchase. You can find and follow CAE Transfers online at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram using @CAE Transfers. Thank you for your business, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
I'm Jason Pratt, Masterclass USPSA shooter, owner of Brass Monkey Bullets. If you're interested in competition bullets, visit www.brassmonkeybulletsllc.com or call me at 423-967-1063. For more information, my email is brassmonkeybulletsllc@gmail.com. Thank you.
What's up, good people? This is Michael Woodland from M-W Tactical.
This is Coach B from M-W Tactical.
And we are asking for your help with 2 GoFundMe campaigns that we have started. The first one is we are making a professional movie, and it's going to be about our day-to-day life within the sport of shooting. Details about this campaign can be found by visiting gofundme.com/we are making a professional movie. The second campaign, we are asking for you to donate to give financial assistance for those who cannot financially get the training they deserve. Remember, there are a lot of first-time gun owners out there, and I am asking for everyone in the gun industry to come together and make our community stronger. For more details, visit gofundme.com/free firearms training.
Remember how important training is to keep everyone informed and safe.
All right, good people. Thank you for coming back for segment 3 of the M-W Tactical Podcast. And as we said earlier in the show, we have someone that is a subject matter expert when it comes to the mental side of shooting. And I'm not saying the mental side of shooting like focus and squeeze the trigger, but do 8 other things at one time. When I say the mental side, I'm talking about the health side. Whereas a lot of people look at things as being the negative or the caveat to stay away from, so this guy is someone who I've spoken with many, many times beforehand. And every time we get together, conversation just flows. So don't be surprised if this episode of the podcast goes over 3 hours. So without further ado, I want to bring my buddy, my friend, Michael Sodini from Walk the Talk America to the M-W Tactical Podcast. How's it going for you, Mike?
I'm good, Mike. Thank you for having me. This is kind of long overdue.
Oh yeah, man. From the time I actually started the M-W Tactical Podcast, I had to figure out the true direction I wanted it to go. So first couple episodes from season 1 was nothing more than trying to figure out how can I figure out my place within the podcast community. Season 2, I kind of got a grasp on it and understood it a little bit better. Season 3, I'm in full swing. I'm ready to do it now. So therefore, I'm bringing you and everybody I know on to tell their story, their journey.
No, that's awesome, man. And thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk today. You're right. You hit a nail on the head. When we do get into conversations, we get into some pretty deep stuff. And it's like us sitting at a bar or something.
That's pretty much it right there.
Yeah.
Especially like that one time we was at SHOT Show and like the people that was walking past us and everybody looking at us and we just sitting there talking like, yeah, we doing this, we doing that.
Yeah, no, it's great. You find you have a lot in common with people too sometimes, beyond just the love for the shooting sports and the firearms industry itself.
Yeah, that's it right there. That's the bottom line. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Just the connection with people. But then again, you never know who can help you out. And sometimes a simple hi is enough to make somebody smile and put things in perspective to get them to get active or motivated to do certain things.
Oh, 100%. I work in the suicide prevention and mental health aspect of a lot of things, and you'd be shocked at how many people were in crisis and they said, hey, I was going to go do this or something terrible, and I just wanted somebody to even just say, hey, how are you? Right. Like those are stories that stick with me all the time. It's like never underestimate the power of just giving somebody a few seconds, a conversation. Never underestimate the power of hi. How are you?
Hi has got me in trouble so many different times on so many different levels. But at the same time, I had to force a hi to get the point across on something else. And I'll tell you about that one offline when we're sitting there. And it was a military story also.
Right.
Yeah. So can you tell the good people more about who is Mike Sodini and what is Walk the Talk America?
Okay. I am a third generation firearms industry professional. Basically, my family owned a company called Eagle Imports. I was a product of nepotism. It worked out well for me. But I never was a gun person growing up, believe it or not. And in looking back on it, my family they weren't into firearms either. You look at it, they knew enough and they were dangerous. Like they knew enough to navigate through the business world of it, but they weren't shooters. They didn't go to the range. They didn't go hunting. We're all from New Jersey. Pretty much grew up in urban areas, cities. For me, growing up in New Jersey and then spending a lot of formative years in California, I just didn't have access to firearms in terms of being able to do those things, go hunting, kind of get into the culture. So when I went to Arizona State, I graduated. It was assumed that I was going to go into the family business, kind of got thrown into it. Didn't love it at first, just because when you're young, you think, I don't know if I want to do this the rest of my life. I don't know if I just want to work in the family business. So I left. I stayed for, I went in for like a year and took off, did a bunch of other things. That actually helped me business-wise because I ended up going and working for other people that had expectations and demands of me that my family they would have never put on me, Right. You think about it, being like a glorified secretary, making $40K out of college, not a bad gig. I probably should have kept my mouth shut and just rolled with it. But I'm glad I got out. And like I said, working for other people, you kind of understand what it's like to put real work in. Came back and, eventually became the president of the company. I was an owner. And then in 2018, because we had some tragedy in 2009. The reason why I'd become president of the company is because my current president at the time took his life with a firearm. And it kind of forced me into the role to move into the president role, not just owner and kind of employee of the company. And that's something that always stuck with me. You know, our industry, we have a lot of first responders, we have a lot of vets, we deal with a lot of suicide by firearm. And it's one of those things that we don't want it used and weaponized against us. So for many years, you know, we just kept quiet about those things. It was like Bigfoot, right? Like it was mythical. Like you didn't talk about it. You kind of just, yeah, you know, it exists, but we can't really talk about it, or we can't mourn. We can't do these things because we don't want people to be like, yeah, see, firearms, bad, you know, equate to bad. And I always thought that was odd, especially because we hold our first responders and active duty military and you know, combat vets so near and dear to us as an industry. You know what it's like. You go to SHOT Show, you're walking around, especially you, Mike. I mean, you walk that talk. You know what I mean? Like you know how it is. Like there's a lot of these people that have this that flock to this industry because they trust it, right? And you know what it's like to lose the people you hold dear. So, chance meeting in 2018 with a lady in New Orleans. She was sitting at dinner with me and my national sales manager, Rafael DeValle. She said, I don't know anything about guns. You guys, can you explain to me like what happens during a mass shooting? And, you know, of course we were 11 drinks deep at minimum. He said, everybody blames us. We blame the mental health community and nothing ever happens and people just die. And she goes, well, if you know it's not you, and you know it's the mental health thing, like how do you work? You must work hand in hand with the mental health community to find solutions. And of course we were like, no, not really. Like, you know, it's two separate things. But that question changed my life. And I became obsessed with the idea of how can we work with the mental health community to make Earth better in a sense, right? My initial reaction was, well, because my national sales manager goes, yeah, Mike, you should give like $1 a gun to mental health, right? Like, he said that at the table. I thought, well, yeah, I could do that. And I could probably lean on a few other companies that I know because I've been in the industry for so long. I could probably get them to chip in too. And what if we were to work with the mental health side of things and give them the money they need? Because everything I had read said mental health has been defunded over the years, and go from there. Well, it turns out like it was a novel idea, but it wasn't realistic because they don't have the answers as well. You can't just hand money to somebody. It's just like everything in life. You don't always get to hand money and fix it. But that forced me to look at the firearms industry and say, well, what are the things we can do? How can we work with those in the mental health community without dealing with legislation? What are some unique solutions we can come up with ourselves to break the stigma of, you know, mental health and also break the stigma of firearms ownership? We're both too highly stigmatized. One's an industry, one's a community, right? Or they both can be considered industries, but mental health community sounds a lot better because really that's really what it is. We run parallel to each other, but we don't communicate. And that's what I was here to change. You know, it became kind of my calling. So that's the story in a nutshell, right? I think that's the
Yeah, that's perfect right there. So that opens up a lot of questions, especially after the election with the current administration and what's about to take place with the message from the current president as to what he stated to Congress as far as coming up with new gun laws or stricter gun laws. Now, has anybody from a political let me put it, has anybody from the political realm contacted Walk the Talk America in regards to talking about a possible solution or what you see compared to what they see?
Not really. We had one instance where someone who was actually Underwood out of Illinois, she has notoriously taken an anti-gun stance on many things, but she did contact, or she didn't personally, but her people contacted Walk Talk America because they wanted an endorsement on a bill that would provide Gun 101 training to mental health professionals that work within the VA, which, even though she notoriously had an anti-gun stance, that is something I actually can get behind if they do it. I put in the letter of endorsement, if you provide the class similar to what we provide at Walk the Talk America, we have a class for mental health clinicians that teaches them Gun 101. It's a class that would be insanely boring for you, right? You probably could teach it, but especially the part where it's like, the handling of guns and the difference between semi-automatic and automatic and all those things. But that was the first interaction I had with any kind of politician. Now, my assumption with the traction that Walk the Talk America has gotten, and now that we're almost 3 years old, I'm hearing rumblings about politicians who want to sit down and talk to me, that have interest in talking. Because here's the deal. The restrictions and the laws that we currently have in the books, or all these wacky things like HR 127, they're not working. If we saw a decline in suicide by firearm over the years, you can tie it to this works. It's going like this, right? So I kind of bring this attitude of, let's bring something new to this, right? Because the definition of sanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? And that's really what we keep doing. We keep playing the merry-go-round game with these laws. And many of these laws, they don't even realize it. It's stigmatize mental health. They're racist, they're elitist. And I'm here to point that out, but I'm giving it a different look, man. You'd be really shocked at how we're changing minds of those that are either gun neutral, but lean more to the restriction side, or anti-gun.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I had a conversation not too long ago, and, one of the biggest questions now being proposed is, there's a shortage of ammo, and a lot of people are starting to say that shortage of ammo is coming from all the first-time gun buyers. So this conversation went deeper into that. So we was starting to discuss how many people were against firearms at the beginning when the pandemic happened. Now all those people who was against firearms are now trying to get a firearm to protect themselves, because now they actually see how the stuff can hit the fan.
Right.
But now, with that conversation that was in place, and once again, with the current administration, when they actually stated that the problem is the health side, they were trying to blame firearms for being a health issue, mental health issue, right? How does that sit with you in regards to everything that built up to now?
Well, it's not as easy as being able to say it's a mental health issue. It's a very nuanced conversation. So it never really sits well when people on either side, right, on the firearm side, dismiss everything as a mental health issue, as I did, right, when I first started this. And then on the other side too, sometimes the politicians, even the anti-gun ones, they don't realize like what they're doing is adding stigma to the mental health issue.
Right.
It never has sit. It took me a while to get it. And let me give you an example. When we think about like a mass shooter, right? We think that it has to be a mental health issue. And yes, like at some point we all have to agree, like that's not normal behavior, right? Something happened, something got somebody there. But here's the deal. Unless that person has been diagnosed, we don't know if there is a mental health issue, and we'll never know. That's a guessing game. Right. And when I first got into this business, I was really trying to find answers, because I would talk to people, hey, mental health clinicians, like some famous ones, I would say, look, if this isn't a mental health issue, how can I go back to my people, the firearms industry people, and explain it to them so it makes sense? Because I think everyone would agree that it does seem like a mental health issue when people go off the rails, right? When they're in crisis. And what they explained to me was there's 200 different diagnoses of like mental health issues. Arachnophobia is considered a mental health issue.
Really?
Like fear of spiders.
You serious?
Yes. So that's when it becomes an issue, when you kind of paint it with one brush, right? Like, this is mental health. And the best example someone gave me one time to really make it click in my head is they said, you could take 10 people who have schizophrenia and you can hand them a firearm and say, hey, keep this in your house, like use it for protection. And they could go their whole lives without doing a thing with it, without hurting somebody, right? I could come home one day and catch my wife in bed with my best friend and go into crisis mode and do something stupid. Right. And I've never been diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or anything like that. So it's a nuanced conversation, right? But the thing is like, we can't just dismiss everything as it's a mental health issue.
Right.
I think we need to come together and figure out when is the best time for people to get mental health treatment, and can they? You know, I like to call it like before stage 4, right? You don't wait till stage 4 to go get help. Unfortunately, a lot of people wait till stage 4 when it comes to like cancer, and it's too late. And we could do the same thing with our minds, right? We could just look for innovative solutions to get people the help they need when they're in crisis without fear of consequence. And I think that will make all the world a difference. Now, having said that, I am not sure we'll ever solve the suicide issue.
Right.
So when people ask me, what is your goal? Is it to reduce suicide? I think it's silly for me to sit up here and say, yeah, I want to reduce suicide. I want to reduce suicide by firearm. You see what I mean? It's a difference. I'm not sure we could do the other thing.
Now, I'm no expert when it comes to the mental health side of things. And by being a leader in the military, this is one of the topics they hit on all the time. And it's one of those type situations, whereas if somebody even hints around to it, you have to take it serious, even if you know the person probably isn't serious, you know. And one lesson that it taught me, a big lesson, was when I was in basic training. I was platoon guide at this time frame, and you know, the drill sergeants will mess with you all hours of the night, so you're only getting maybe 2 or 3 hours of sleep on certain days. One of the other soldiers woke me up and stated another soldier was wanting to kill themselves. And where I'm from, Newport News, Virginia, you know, it's almost like Missouri. You have to show it to me to prove it to me. Right. So what I actually said to the soldier was, wake me up when he do it and we'll deal with it then. And I got in trouble for making that statement. And the drill sergeant actually showed me in the regulations and everything that stated, like, this is something serious. You can't, even though where you're from and people say stuff like that and they only seeking attention, by this being like a Fortune 500 company, being the military, you have to take every instance serious, because if you don't, that's where you find the gaps in your organization. You know, so I was like, okay. But like I said, it was a learning lesson for me. So even when I'm talking to people, if something doesn't sit well with me, I'm going to say something to somebody else and get their opinion. And then, of course, we go ahead and we approach it or de-escalate it or whatever situation may be.
Right, which is such a weird dynamic, because you know, for the listeners, I've never been part of the military. I would have never made it in the military. But I do appreciate the fact that you guys are taught like not to show weakness, right? To keep pushing through when it's at its worst. I can see how that could be very confusing for you, especially if that's how you came up, if that was the culture of your neighborhood, right? Like if it was, hey, you got to deal with this. Like, this isn't that's a you problem, not a me problem. Like, so it makes perfect sense. And I think that's always been the weird issue. You know, hey, be a killer, be out there defending the nation. be tough as nails, then be really super sensitive when it's confusing. So I don't fault you at all for, having that thought process back then. I'm glad that you're able to grow from it and learn, right? Because some people can't.
Right.
I mean, I have family members that would have never, ever admitted what you just admitted. Like, I had to learn. They would have just doubled down all the time. Like, I was raised by some tough Italian guys. Like, that was the mentality. You couldn't say I'm having these thoughts. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's really tough. I like how you tied it back to a Fortune 500 business too, right? That's a real eye opener.
Yeah. And that's one thing how I've always looked at the military, because whenever a scandal or something happened in those big organizations, now you start seeing the wheels turn and you start seeing the change happen, which is, we can't have this happen again, but let's put parameters in place to catch it before it does, get to that level. But if we can intercept it right before because everything you do, there's signs. Something is a clue somewhere in there, and that's just how I've always pictured everything and looked at everything.
Let me ask you this question. So you were a leader, you led, right? People came to you with issues. With having that kind of background and mindset of like, hey, we're here to win. Like, that's really what it is, right? We're here to win at everything we do. We're here to accomplish our goals and complete our missions. And that's the mentality. Like, as you grew in that role, were you able to, like, certain people need a kick in the butt, right? Like, when I played football, my coach knew he could scream at me. It motivated me to play better. And then I'd have other kids like on the team where I'm like, if I'd have done that, he would have broke a clipboard over my head. But this kid, he's like totally like, hey, like, it's okay, you'll get the next one. And I'm like, where's that energy with me?
Right.
Did you have to kind of play puppet master, like understanding who was soft and maybe who you could just be like, not my problem?
Oh yeah. So now, when I say I was a leader in the military, because when you talk to certain people, everybody's a leader in the military, which is a true statement, But the point I'm talking about, when I was a leader in the military, I was an E7. So I'm working directly with a platoon leader who is an officer, and I got like 30 or 40 soldiers under me, So now look at all the different personalities you got to deal with within your little cubicle. Now, outside of that cubicle, I still have to deal with the first sergeant, the commander, the sergeant major, the battalion sergeant major. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
it's many different faucets, and as you're moving everything around, you have to know how to talk to the different personalities, not to trigger somebody, not to be put in a negative light, but at the same time, when I'm doing something, I know I have to talk to this person a little bit more gentle than I talk to this person, because I don't want them to, mess up anything or think themselves as a failure or something wrong with them. Or I don't want to put this person in charge because I know he has somewhat of an attitude problem and he's going to go upside somebody's head if they don't talk to him the right way. So, you really have to understand people in a leadership role, and that's when it goes back to that whole portion when I was telling you, when I talk to people, that's how I'm able to pick up certain things, and then I will go talk to other people, because that's just a skill you just naturally picked up from being a leader in the military. So like when people talk, the easiest way to relate it is from a man's perspective. When you talk to a female, if you're interested in that female, you can pick up the change in tone, the change in body language, and you're using that to work in your advantage to get your ultimate goal, which is either I'm going to marry this woman, or this is my plan to do this on this date, this time, however you want to look at it.
Right.
So that whole mental challenge piece, you have to be aware at all times. Just like we talk in the gun community, you got to keep your head on the swivel. You always got to be ready 100% of the time, but 100% of the time is actually understanding people, understanding when there's a problem, because if this person is always happy, now all of a sudden they're sad, what's on your mind? And you can't go for the subtle excuse of, oh, I just woke up on the bad side, wrong side of the bed, or, me and my girlfriend, we got into an argument and that's just bothering me right now. You have to read through that stuff. And a lot of times people will tell you something just so you can leave them alone and then they can go ahead and forth with their mission.
Right. So as alphas, right? And that's really what, like, and I always say this about the firearms industry is like a lot of us are, we take on the alpha role, or it's bestowed on us sometimes unfairly, right? Like it's like I walk in mental health circles and everyone always says this, like, I wouldn't want to mess with you. And it's like, why? Because I'm in the firearms industry. Like that, it's like almost as if this is belief that if something breaks out, I'm going to be the savior. You know what I mean? Like, and so you're in the military, and there is a lot of issues there with coming forward to get help when you're in crisis. Crisis is always temporary, right? And that's one thing that we think we need to start focusing on as a society in general. This not just in military culture, but crisis is temporary. Some will argue all mental health is temporary, right? Which I always kind of like that theory because it's empowering, because it means there's a solution at the end, or it's not the, I have to live with this my entire life. Like, yeah, sometimes you do, but at other times, maybe you could really turn a corner, right? Did you ever have issues or see men that you thought he's really about to break and he's afraid to come forward and he can't?
Oh yeah. That's happened plenty of times, especially when we was overseas. Different people handle stress differently. Everybody handles stress differently. That's how I should have worded that. At the same time frame, the way you was brought up in life and your experiences in life is how you're going to handle a situation. For me, being in the various firefights and taking life, it affected me, but it didn't affect me when I was in country. It didn't affect me until I got back here, because my mind state was, I got to do what I got to do to survive in order to get back here with my family. Right. So that was my way of thinking. Whereas there were soldiers who couldn't process that. They couldn't handle that. There were a lot of people who were tapping out in the middle of a mission or right before we roll out. They started, I can't do this. I can't pull the trigger on somebody else. Well, you don't know if that's going to happen today or not. No, I'm not willing to take that chance. Right now, you can't just tell that person, hey, get your gear, get in the vehicle. Because once again, you have to take that serious. Right. If it does happen now, if you decide to fetal up on the side of the wheel of a vehicle, that hurts the manpower that we have out there, because the number that we going out that gate with, everybody has a role. That role does not encompass you not being part of that role, you know? So that has, like I said, that has happened many times over when we was overseas, not just in my platoon, but across the board. Sniper section, I seen snipers after like their third or fourth mission, taking out so many people. I can't do it no more. I'm not going to do it no more. You can't get mad at it. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody has a breaking point, right? And not everybody, even though we watch the movies and we glorify the action hero who is taking out 30, 45 people in an hour and a half movie, that's entertainment. But when you associate that to real life, that's takes a toll on you mentally and physically, you know? So the downside to it was, how do you handle that situation? Because your reinforcements are back overseas, and now you got to wait at least 72 hours to get a replacement in for this person. All right. Do you bring somebody else to fill in for that person, or do you just cancel that mission? You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, you got to talk with your leaders and everything. And it was something that was challenging. It was very challenging.
Does that, sorry, I know this is a Mike Sodini podcast interviewing.
No, you're good. You're good.
Because I'm fascinated with this because it really does tie into a lot of the people we help, right?
Right.
Did you ever get to a point or, where you kind of were looking around and, all right, let me ask you this. If someone was in that crisis moment and they did tap out, did they have any chance of coming back or were they pretty much done?
From my perspective, I looked at it as you were done because of the severity of my job. I wasn't willing to put nobody else's life in the line of danger off of a wishy-washy thought.
Mm-hmm.
So once you start displaying the whole, this isn't for me, I can't do it. Now, 2 hours later, I'm good. I'm ready to get back in it. I'm not willing to take that chance, the second time around.
And that's interesting because therein lies the problem, right? Is I think about all my life, like anxiety. I didn't understand what that was.
Mm-hmm.
Never had an anxiety attack or anything like that. And then in my mid 30s at SHOT Show, because of, I think, exhaustion, right? Like if anyone knows, have been to SHOT Show, it's like we burn it at both ends, especially when you have a booth at SHOT Show.
Right.
You're out drinking till 3, 4 in the morning with customers, clients, friends that you haven't seen all year. And then you're getting up at 6 o'clock to go work the booth and get to the booth at 7. And I had an anxiety attack at night in my room. And I didn't know what it was, but I felt like I was having a heart attack.
Right.
And my thought process in my mind was get up and move. I felt like, they say if sharks stop swimming, like they die. Right. I was literally pacing around. And at some point I was like, am I going to have to call like the ambulance, like to come get me like from the hotel? Like I really got nervous. And it wasn't until later, because everything did calm down eventually, that I realized I just had an anxiety attack. Like that was I came to that reality, like what that was months later. Like that was a full-blown panic anxiety attack. And my thought process is like, that was one day. And I can't imagine if I was about to go into battle or go on a mission and that happened, right? It didn't define me. It wasn't it didn't happen ever again. I was able to cope with when I had those certain feelings. It's like, you're in your own head.
Yes. Yeah, calm it down.
Yeah.
So now I've had 2 anxiety attacks. The first one I had, it was either at NRA or SHOT Show. All the shows run the same to me,
Mm-hmm.
but it was either NRA or the SHOT Show. And what took place was I was recognized, and it was about 15, 20 people. They was all circling me, wanting pictures to talk and all that good stuff. And it was, I can't remember exactly how long I was there, but I was literally like, I looked at one of the guys that was standing there and I was like, hey man, I need you to get me out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you okay? And I just looked at him like I made my eyes bigger. And I said, I really need you to get me out of here. All right. And then he said something to the people, and I just put my hand on his shoulder and I was like, hey, thank y'all. And I'll see y'all later, but I got to go to this next appointment. And then when we started walking, I know we was over by the restroom. So I went in the restroom, put water on my face, and he was just like, hey man, you okay? You okay? I was like, yo, man. I said, I'm good. I never had that happen before. It was like a scary feeling for me. Right. And he was like, well, what do you think it was? And I said, I don't know, to be honest with you. Only thing I could relate it to, thinking back on it, was in the military, I'm with my squad, 8, 9 people. And that's how we defend ourselves. We defend ourselves within ourselves. But when all those people was coming around me, and then you're seeing the flashing, hey, can you sign this? Can let me ask you this? It was too much to absorb at that one time.
Yeah.
The next time it happened to me, I was at the mall. Literally, I was at the mall. And I don't remember the time frame when it was, if I was in the military or out of the military. But I remember I was at the mall and it was so many people, and I literally fell when I was walking. It felt like I'm walking with the crowd, but it felt like energy was coming against me. And I fell down. And then I know two people had helped me up. And then I made my way to the bench, and it was like, "You okay? You all right?" And the person I was with, it was a female friend. And then she was like, "Yo, you're too big. I can't carry you."
Right.
And I was like, "Yo, give me a few minutes. Give me a few minutes. I'm good." I said, "I just got dizzy. I don't understand what's going on right now." And that was the first time that had ever happened to me. The NRA or SHOT Show, that was the second time. And I just sat there for a little bit. We sitting there, we're talking. And as we got up to go out, there was a vending machine. I got some orange juice out of the vending machine, went back to the vehicle, and we left.
Right.
That was the end of it. The third time, as you stated, I felt it coming and I coped with it. Right. And all it was simply was I just sat down, started playing video games, and it went away.
Right.
Right. And I felt those feelings coming about, but let's just happen to say I retired 2017. That time at NRA SHOT Show, that was probably 2018. And nothing has happened since. You know what I'm saying? Because I think once you actually was in that realm of thinking, you automatically how to deal with it, how to cope with it, because you went through it one time already.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And it's kind of like, one of the things that we do is provide free and anonymous mental health screenings to anyone in the firearms industry, right? We have the bands that we give out. We have the cards that we put in the stores. For the listeners, we have a card that many gun manufacturers put in their box that leads to these 13 different free and anonymous mental health screenings. One of them is anxiety. I tell people all the time, you don't have to be in crisis to go take a screening, just to see where you're at. And what's unique about the screenings, or what I think is really cool, and this is a story that I tell all the time because I saw it work with my daughter. I grew up, as I said earlier, in a family where if I were to came to my father or came to my grandfather or my uncle, the people that I look up to, my Mount Rushmore, right? And I would have said, "Hey, I think I suffer from anxiety." They would have said, "I'll give you something to have anxiety about." And we'd have to keep it moving. Like there's, it was a non-starter. Like there's no way we could,
in their defenses, you have to understand they did not know or understand back then what we do now.
Exactly. Well, definitely 100%. Right. That's why I'm not mad at them, but it's the way it was back then.
Right.
And sometimes it's the way it still is, right? Because some people don't take the time to figure out what's going on. They're stuck in their ways, right? Like my 80-year-old grandfather, you could never tell him anything. He knew everything, right?
Right.
I knew everything at 21.
Right.
Now realizing I didn't know anything. But my daughter comes into my office and she says, "Hey, Dad, I think I suffer from anxiety." And I said, it was like a teachable moment. I said, "Hey, sweetheart, the little band?" Actually, it wasn't the band. It was at the time we didn't have the band idea. It kind of sparked the band idea, but it was like, "Hey, the organization that your father works with, Mental Health America, go on there, take a screening, answer it honestly. Don't answer it as if you're answering for people that they're going to show up, and see where you see where you land on it, right?" Like, so she comes in 2 days later. She's like, "Hey, Dad, I took the thingy. I was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, the for anxiety." "Oh, how did it go?" And she smiled, right? And she goes, "I only have mild anxiety." And I said, that's a good thing, right? You feel better?" And she said, "Yeah, I feel a lot better." And she said, "I'm actually going to give this to a friend of mine too." And I said, "Well, yeah, because it teaches you how to deal with it, right? Because it gives you these little pointers, if you go through. And, I thought about that. I was like, it's such a simple thing. And people are just like, "Yeah, what's the screening really going to do?" Well, for us in the firearms industry, and for us that are first responders or combat vets or active duty military, our privacy is important. So it's a good way for people to go in, and you don't have to be in crisis. It's like, "Hey, where do I fall on this spectrum?" You know what I mean? When it comes to anxiety, or, if you had a sneaking suspicion, you may have bipolar disorder, like go take a screening and just see where you're at. Yeah, you don't have to do anything after that, and maybe you could learn some tips to where, like you said, on that third time that it came, you knew you were in control because you're like, I know what this is, and I know what to do to mitigate it.
Yeah. So, and a lot of people who don't know attribute it to stress. You know what I'm saying? It is a form of stress, but there are different levels of stress also. So, but what they say in that G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle.
Yes.
That's how you do it. So how can the good people find out where to take this assessment, and how can they find out more about Walk the Talk America?
They can visit WTTA.org or walkthetalkamerica.org. On social media, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, it's at Walk the Talk US. There's a lot of information on there, every platform that kind of explains what we do and all the different programs. Once again, you can go on there and take a free screening. It's free and anonymous. It's great, right? The idea is, we've sat in the shadows too long, and people have accused the firearms industry of not caring, baby killers, celebrating when there's tragedy. And the simple fact is we all know that's not true. We just know that is not true. I don't believe that any group has the right to say that firearms people can't be socially conscious. Like they can't I refuse to let people take that away from us. So we're doing some great things that I think as firearms owners, you'd be very proud of, right? Like we are working on the front line, and in many cases, in my opinion, doing more for Second Amendment rights and suicide prevention and mental health awareness than a lot of organizations out there. So, go to the website.
If another business or organization or just people want to contact Walk the Talk America or yourself to be a part of, help, contribute in a positive way, how can they do that?
Just through the website. Once again, WTTA.org. Go on there. There's a contact us form. As well as I do, I'm on social media all the time. I'm very responsive. They contact me through my social media. It's Michael Sodini, at Michael Sodini. We are always looking for help. Obviously, not everyone can contribute financially. We do understand that times are tough, especially we're coming out of the end of the world, right? A lot of people have been out of work for a while, but there are different ways people can help, and we can lead you to that, right? We can show you how you can help, but even just spreading the word, when you're on social media, reposting our posts. Mike, you've been amazing at being, championing for WTTA. You've posted many times with your daughter, which has been awesome. Like little things like that get us exposure. That helps. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm a firm believer in spreading the word, because you're spreading the word, you're spreading the wealth.
Yeah.
And you never know who you're going to make that connection with, who might need it. I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
The stories become anecdotal at some point, but when there's a million anecdotal stories, you're on to something. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. 'Cause it's something we all have to deal with. Once again, we don't know what somebody's struggle is or what they're going through, but there's always somebody there willing to help regardless of what you're going through.
Right.
So it's one of those moments, whereas I was excited when I first heard about, the endeavor that you decided to take on, and then just looking at it over the course of time, how it snowballed to what it is now. I'm like, anytime, same thing I said to you back then, any way I can help, just let me know. I'm there for you regardless. No questions asked.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Your support from day one has been great. That SHOT Show, when we actually got to meet face to face, was awesome. I still, cherish that conversation. It was great.
Right.
Yeah, that was the funny thing too. Is like that was one of those early mornings, and I was like out of it, right? And you're just like Mike, and I'm like, somebody calling me. I mean, you know how it is when your name is Mike. Like,
right.
people call out that name all the time. It's like, when in doubt, just say his name. His name's Mike. Right? But, I thank you for that support. And I really, you just said something like snowballed. Yeah. Like, it's crazy. I think about how far we've come since our conversation at that SHOT Show. I never would have thought it would get to where it's at today. This is really, the message has transcended different walks of life, and it really speaks to people. And that's what I think I'm most proud of, is it does speak to people that aren't even firearms people. Right. Like they can get the concept. So, WTTA.org, go there, read about the programs, just check out the website. It's started by gun people for firearms owners.
Yeah, that's it right there. So please, everybody, go check out Walk the Talk America and see what they have to offer, and then contact Mike, tell him you heard about it through the podcast, and give your thoughts, give suggestions, give input, give what you can. We're going to bring you back again, Mike, so we can have part 2 of this conversation, because there is so much we didn't touch. And we're restricted on time, of course, but within the next couple of weeks or so, we'll bring you back on and we'll continue this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Anytime.
That will
tell
work.
me when.
That will work. So once again, thank you for coming on to the M-W Tactical Podcast. And if everybody will, please stay in your seats, and here are a few words from our sponsors.
Are you in the market to purchase your first or next firearm, but find the atmosphere of a gun store intimidating, crowded, or uninviting? There's a way for you to purchase the gun you want while avoiding the crowds, the gruff salesmen, and the marked up prices that come with a brick and mortar gun store. The process is called a transfer, where the purchase is made in an online store and sent to a federally licensed middleman called an FFL, who processes the paperwork and background check for a firearm purchase. CAE Transfers is the FFL with the lowest transfer cost in the Midlands at only $20 or $15 with the presentation of a South Carolina concealed weapons permit, and $10 for repeat customers. If you live in Columbia, South Carolina or its surrounding areas, choose CAE Transfers as your FFL during checkout, and let me help you complete your online gun purchase. You can find and follow CAE Transfers online at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram using @CAE Transfers. Thank you for your business, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Hey, this is Brian Conley at Hunters HD Gold. If you've never tried Hunters HD Gold, then I challenge you to find me at a match next year. Go to the website under scheduled events, find out where I'm going to be. Come meet me in person and demo a pair for yourself. Find out why shooters across the United States are changing to Hunters HD Gold to get 43% more light to their eyes, better contrast, eyes that are not fatigued at the end of the day based on the colors that we use, and find out the real meaning of why they change so you don't have to. So check us out on our website, huntershdgold.com, and I look forward to seeing you at the range soon.
Mental health and guns. At Walk the Talk America, we are working with both the mental health community and the gun industry. Created by a gun industry veteran, Walk the Talk America seeks to raise awareness and create change through suicide prevention and firearm safety without legislation. We strive to eliminate the prejudice that firearms and mental health face. For more information and to support Walk the Talk America, please visit walkthetalkamerica.org.
The gun cleaners.
Our solvent is, I think, second to none. Our lube is second to none. Our lube's heavier than water, which is just a huge thing. People don't really put a lot of thought into that, just how huge that is to have on your gun, especially with concealed carry.
The gun cleaners.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
You're going to sweat a lot of the other lubes off. With ours, it'll stay there.
The gun cleaners.
And maintaining the quality of the process, the quality of the end result, is another, and you guys are able to do both with the process that you have there.
Order your supply of the lube and the solvent at www.theguncleaners.com.
Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us on the M-W Tactical Podcast. Remember, a new podcast comes out every Tuesday. If you can't wait for Tuesday, go listen to past episodes to catch up on what you missed. Make sure you visit www.m-wtactical.com and see what all is offered on the site. where you can even purchase M-W Tactical apparel. But please, go to our Facebook and Instagram page and follow us on our journey in the sport of competition shooting and the realm of the 2A community. Until next week, keep shooting, keep practicing, and have fun.